Hello, everyone. This week we continue with our discussion and study of the people and cultural ideas of ancient India. And our concentration this week and into next week will be on religious and philosophical ideas that developed in ancient India. And in particular, we are focusing today on the Indo-Aryan civilization and their contribution to world religion through the development of ideas that today are known as Hinduism. So we're going to look at a few basic ideas associated with that and the development of the religion itself to start with. One of the things that I want us to begin with is the social structure of Aryan society. And the reason why we begin here is that these principles of social structure become a key component of the ideas of Hinduism. And you can see here listed the different social positions, kind of the main social positions that existed in Aryan society. The Rajas that ruled Brahmins, who were the priests, and the warrior class in ancient India. And last week, if you remember, you looked at some primary source readings that talked about the militarism of the Aryan people. But also there were other classes, merchants, traders, farmers, servants. And within the structure of Aryan society, they developed this very detailed, elaborate social system of marriage and marriage rules. And eventually this structure became very, very rigid. And part of it, I think, you could realize was part of their aspect of putting themselves in kind of positions of authority over not just their own culture or within their own culture, but also it became a method of control of the peoples that they conquered. Because remember, the Indo-Aryans were a very militaristic society, nomadic warriors that conquered others, and it became a way for them to stress the differences between themselves and the people they conquered, as well as to keep the people they conquered in positions of subservience. And you'll notice here that this is a big part of the idea of the development of the caste system in Hinduism. And if you're not familiar with the caste system, we'll look at this a little bit more in the next couple of slides. But basically, if you were going to define it, it's a system of social categorization to divide people. And in the system, as it developed, the religious leaders, the priests, the Brahmins, were placed at the top of the social system, and at the bottom of the social system were those that were referred to as pariahs, or as you might maybe more commonly hear them referred to as the untouchables. Let's take a look at these two images here to give you an idea of the breakdown of their social structure. And there's two different ones that I've selected here to show you a couple of different things. First of all, if you look over here on the left, you see the social caste. Brahmins at the top, Kshatriyas, second, the warrior class, Vaishyas, kind of that group of merchants, traders, craftspeople, and then Shudras down at the bottom, farm workers, servants, laborers. But notice, of course, here in the color coding that the Shudras are non-Aryans. They were considered out of the upper classes. And if you look at this image over here, it designates these three upper classes as what are known as the twice-born groups. The the only Hindus in these groups, under the ideas of Hinduism, are the top three social classes. The Shudra class are not even considered Hindu. They worship with their own religious texts. They are not allowed to use the religious texts of the Hindus, which are the Vedas. You've read some of the Vedas with primary sources last week. And then you notice that this bottom level, where you have this group labeled as the untouchables or the pariahs, these are people that would be so far outside the system that they're not even really considered as as anywhere part of the Hindu social class system. And this was part of the method that the Indo-Aryans would use to kind of separate themselves from people, and it kept them in positions of authority over the people that they conquered, the non-Aryan people. And one of the key things to think about, if you're familiar with Hinduism a little bit from past readings or discussions, that in order to advance through the process of reincarnation, everyone has to move from these classes up to the caste of Brahmin. This is the only group of people that Hindus believe can be released from the cycle of reincarnation, which would be the overall goal. And in order to get to this upper class, you have to fulfill the duties and obligations if you were born into these lower classes. So I want to show you a little bit of terminology that connects to this. You can see some of the things that I've already mentioned. The caste system, of course, which I just mentioned earlier. But one of the other things that you're going to have an assignment on this week is the concept of Brahman, the idea that there is a single universal divine power that guides the universe. And some people would say that Hinduism is polytheistic, meaning that they believe in multiple gods. In fact, if you look at Hinduism, there are 330 million different deities that are worshipped in the Hindu system. But what Hindus believe is that all of those deities are part of the single universal soul of Brahman. So they're just different incarnations of Brahman. And not just the spiritual deities, but also this concept of monism, which is the belief that all souls, all human souls, the Atman is what your soul would be, are all part of Brahman as well. And Hinduism has this concept of Maya, which is that the physical world, the visible world that's around us is not the real world, that really it is the spiritual world that is reality. And so what we are a part of here is not really reality, it's kind of an illusion, all of which has been created by Brahman for his own mysterious purposes. And ultimately, the goal of all Hindus would be to work their way through reincarnation of the soul, or what's called samsara, or the transmigration of the soul, up through all the classes of caste to get to the Brahmin class, where your soul then could be reincarnated and would go back to the universal soul of Brahman, and you would be released from the cycle of reincarnation. In order to do that, you have to fulfill your duties and obligations in life, which is called dharma. And by doing those things, you will create positive karma in your life, which is, as you can see, the totality of all of your actions, all good things and bad things that you do, all work together to create a totality of what you have done in your life, and it doesn't go away. It is a continual conservation of the spiritual energy, and that ultimately, when you die, you are basically kind of weighed by your karma. And if you have more positive, then you would be rewarded by a higher level of incarnation when your soul is reborn, until ultimately you work your way through the cycle and then you get released from reincarnation. If you have a negative um, uh, karma, then you would be punished by being born in a lower caste system, or potentially not even born as a human. You could be born as an animal or into a plant. Um, and that you then have to kind of work your way back up into the cycle eventually till you get to the Brahman cycle. So, those are some basic concepts and ideas. You're going to have some primary source reading this week, and then some documentary um, reading, and some secondary reading about Hinduism. And there'll be a little bit more information there that will hopefully explain some of the concepts of Hinduism a little bit better. Talk to you later. Goodbye.